Open to the very first page of the Bible, and you will find a tension most modern readers completely miss. Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. It is the first spoken command in Scripture, the first act of creation, the first thing God calls good. When we read those words, our minds automatically picture a sunrise. We imagine a dark, empty planet suddenly illuminated by a glowing yellow sun. But there is a problem. If you keep reading the chapter, the sun does not appear in verse 3. The sun does not show up on day 1. It is absent on day 2. It is still missing on day 3. God does not create the sun, the moon, and the stars until day 4. For 3 days, there is morning and evening. There is light and darkness. There is a cycle of time, but there is no sun. How can there be light without a celestial body to project it? Many modern readers rush past this. They assume it is just primitive science, or perhaps clumsy poetry. They assume the ancient writers simply made a mistake in the sequence. But the ancient Hebrews knew exactly where daylight came from. They knew the sun governed the morning. Placing the creation of light on day 1 and the creation of the sun on day 4 is not a mistake. It is a deliberate theological claim, and it is the key to unlocking a pattern that will shape the rest of the Bible. In the ancient Near East, the surrounding empires worshipped the sun. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Canaanites, they built their entire religions around the sun god, the moon god, and the stars. They believed these giant spheres in the sky were divine beings that ruled over human destiny. Genesis chapter 1 does something radical. It demotes them. When the sun and moon finally appear on day 4, the biblical text does not even give them their proper names. It refuses to call them the sun and the moon. It just calls them the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. They are not gods. They are lamps. They are just functionaries, created objects, doing a specific job. By separating the creation of light from the creation of the sun, Genesis is telling us something profound about the nature of reality. The physical sun is not the ultimate source of light, life, or order. God is. Before God hangs a single star in the sky, His own uncreated presence illuminates the cosmos. Notice what the light actually does on day 1. Verse 2 tells us that before the light, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. In the biblical imagination, darkness here is not just nighttime, it is chaos. It is the wild, uninhabitable, dangerous abyss. When God speaks, the light breaks in, and it does not just help you see, it brings order. It pushes back the chaos. It establishes boundaries so that life can flourish. This is not a random detail about creation. It is the foundation of a massive biblical pattern. From this point forward, whenever light appears in the biblical story, it is doing the exact same thing it did in Genesis chapter 1. It is not just physical illumination. It is the visible edge of God's presence. It is order conquering chaos. It is life asserting itself over death. The true light of the universe is not a burning ball of gas. It is God Himself. But as the biblical story moves forward, this massive, uncreated light of the cosmos does something entirely unexpected. It does not remain a distant, cosmic force. It steps down into human history. It condenses, and it takes a localized, visible shape to lead a wandering people through a very dark place. Hundreds of years pass after the opening poem of Genesis. The biblical narrative shifts from the creation of the cosmos to the birth of a nation. The people of Israel are fleeing slavery in Egypt. They walk out into the wilderness. If you have ever been in a true desert at night, away from the glow of modern cities, you know what real darkness is. It is disorienting. It is dangerous. In the ancient world, the wilderness at night was the ultimate symbol of chaos. It was the place where wild animals hunted, where travelers vanished, where order broke down. Israel is vulnerable. They have no map. They have no defenses. They are walking into the dark. And then, Exodus chapter 13 gives us one of the most striking images in the entire Hebrew Bible. Verse 21 says, "By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night." The text is very careful with its language. It does not say, "God sent a fire." It says God Himself was in the fire. The uncreated light of Genesis chapter 1 has returned, but it has changed its scale. In the beginning, the light filled the entire cosmos. It separated the primordial waters and pushed back the global darkness. Now, that exact same light has condensed. It has lowered itself. It has taken the shape of a burning pillar, hovering directly over the dirt and rocks of the Sinai Peninsula. The creator of the universe is functioning as a local guide. But if we remember the pattern from Genesis, we know this light is doing more than just illuminating the path. Where the light of God appears, it brings order out of chaos. It creates boundaries so life can flourish. Look at what the light does a few verses later, when the Egyptian army traps Israel against the edge of the Red Sea. The Israelites are terrified. The chaos of Egypt is closing in behind them, and the chaos of the deep water is in front of them. And the text says, the pillar of cloud and fire actually moves. It relocates from the front of the camp to the back. It places itself directly between the army of Egypt and the people of Israel. Exodus chapter 14 tells us that throughout the night, the pillar brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side. The light is separating the order of God's people from the chaos of their enemies, just as it separated light from darkness on day one. It is a protective wall. It is life asserting itself against death. For 40 years, this light never leaves them. It is the visible, tangible edge of God's presence. When the pillar stops, the people stop. When the pillar moves, the people pack up their tents and follow. The cosmic God has bound his own presence to the fragile journey of human beings. It is a stunning act of divine humility. The light that called the universe into existence is now pacing itself to the walking speed of the elderly, the children, and the livestock. But this moving pillar is not the final stage of the pattern. It is only the second step, because as Israel travels through the desert, God gives them a massive set of architectural blueprints. He tells them to build a tent, a portable sanctuary called the Tabernacle. God is no longer satisfied with hovering in the sky as a pillar of fire. He intends to move into the center of the camp. He wants his presence to dwell in their midst. And to do that, he is going to ask his people to take the uncreated light of the cosmos and bring it indoors. God tells Moses to build a tent, a portable sanctuary. Inside this tent, there is a room called the Holy Place. It is completely enclosed. There are no windows. There is no natural light. If you walk inside, it is absolute, heavy darkness. But God gives Moses a specific blueprint to conquer that darkness. In Exodus chapter 25, he commands the Israelites to build a golden lampstand. In Hebrew, the word is menorah. If you read the instructions carefully, you will notice something beautiful. God does not just tell them to forge a functional piece of furniture. He tells them to sculpt a tree. The text uses highly specific botanical language. It speaks of a main trunk, 6 branches extending from the sides, cups shaped like almond blossoms, calyxes, and petals. This is not a random decorative choice. It is a profound theological statement. To the ancient Hebrew mind, this golden lampstand was an immediate reminder of the Garden of Eden. It was the tree of life, blazing with fire. Think about what is happening in the pattern. In Genesis chapter 1, God's uncreated light pushed back the cosmic chaos. In Exodus, that light became a massive pillar of fire to guide a wandering nation through the wilderness. Now, that cosmic light is being cultivated. It is being planted indoors. The tabernacle is designed to be a miniature Eden. It is a small pocket of order in life surrounded by a chaotic, dangerous world. And at the center of this new Eden is the burning tree. Notice the shift. The light is no longer just something God provides from the sky. It is something human beings are invited to tend. In Leviticus chapter 24, God gives the priests a strict command. They must keep the lamps burning continually, from evening until morning. This was not just a religious chore. It was a cosmic responsibility. Every evening, as the literal sun went down and the camp was swallowed by the darkness of the desert, the priest would step into the pitch-black holy place and light the 7 golden lamps. The light would push back the dark. Once again, order was asserting itself over chaos. Life was holding back the night. The presence of God was still illuminating the world, but now, he was using human hands to keep the flame alive. For centuries, this was the heartbeat of Israel's worship. The tabernacle eventually became the permanent temple in Jerusalem. The light burned generation after generation. It stood as a visible promise. God has not abandoned the dark world. The light of Eden is still here, until the darkest moment in Israel's history. Because human beings are fragile and human faithfulness always fractures. Hundreds of years later, the armies of Babylon surround Jerusalem. They breach the walls. They burn the city. They tear down the temple. They take the sacred gold, and they march the people away into exile. And for the first time in centuries, the lamps go out. The physical tree of light is extinguished. Israel is plunged back into the dark. Not just the physical darkness of a ruined city, but the spiritual darkness of exile. The chaos they were supposed to hold back has crashed over the walls and flooded their world. It feels like the pattern has failed. It feels like the darkness has finally won. But the extinguishing of the temple lamps is not the end of the story. Because in the middle of that devastating exile, Israel's prophets begin to see something. They realize that the physical lamps were only ever a shadow. They begin to speak of a new kind of light, a light that cannot be put out by a foreign army or a failing priesthood. And they begin to look toward the horizon, waiting for an impossible prophetic dawn. The exile in Babylon was the darkest period in Israel's history. The city of Jerusalem was in ruins. The golden lampstand had been carried away by a foreign army. The physical light of the sanctuary, the miniature tree of life that had burned for centuries, was finally extinguished. It seemed as though the chaos had won. But in the middle of that profound historical darkness, the biblical pattern of light does not disappear. It transforms. It moves from architecture into prophecy. The prophets of Israel begin to realize that the nation's deepest problem was never just a ruined building. Their deepest problem was the persistent chaos of the human heart, the heavy, suffocating darkness of a fractured world. And so, when the prophet Isaiah speaks about God's future rescue, he does not just talk about repairing a golden lamp. He talks about a cosmic sunrise. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2, he writes, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." Notice the vocabulary. Isaiah is taking us all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. The people are walking in darkness. They are living in the formless, chaotic void. They are trapped in an empire of death. But God is going to speak again. And when God acts to save his people, it will not just be a political rescue. It will be a new act of creation. The uncreated light of God's presence is going to break into human history once more. Later, in Isaiah chapter 60, the prophet looks toward the ruined city and says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples, but the Lord rises upon you. This is not a prediction about a new piece of temple furniture. This is a promise of a presence. The prophets are predicting a day when the pillar of fire that led Israel through the wilderness, the uncreated light of the first day, will return. But this time, it will rise like a new dawn over a dark world. It will draw all the nations out of their chaos and into the life-giving order of God. This became the great, beating hope of the Jewish people. They called it the Messianic Dawn. Eventually, the exile ended. A small remnant of Israelites returned to Jerusalem. They rebuilt the stone walls, they constructed a second temple, and they lit the menorah once again. But if you read the historical accounts in the final books of the Old Testament, there is a lingering sense of disappointment. The golden lamps were burning in the temple, but the world outside was still incredibly dark. The glory of God had not returned in the dramatic, world-altering way Isaiah had promised. The great light had not yet dawned. So, for 400 years, the people waited. They passed the prophecies down from generation to generation. They watched the horizon. They lived under the thumb of the Greek Empire, and then the heavy boot of the Roman Empire. They tended their physical lamps, but they were waiting for the true cosmic light to break through the silence. Pause for a second and look at the movement of the pattern. In Genesis, the light is a cosmic force of creation. In Exodus, it is a localized pillar guiding the camp. In the Tabernacle, it is cultivated as a burning tree of life. In the prophets, it becomes the ultimate metaphor for God's coming rescue. The tension is building. Scripture has set the stage for a massive unveiling. Because centuries later, during a tense and dangerous time in Roman-occupied Jerusalem, a rabbi from Nazareth is going to stand up in the temple courtyard. He is not going to stand just anywhere. He is going to stand right next to massive, towering lamps lit for a national festival. And he is going to look at the crowds, point to the flames, and make a claim about himself that could get him killed. The setting is the Gospel of John, chapter 8. Jesus is in Jerusalem during the Feast of Tabernacles. This was one of the most important and vibrant festivals in the Jewish calendar. According to historical records, during this festival, the priests would erect 4 massive golden towers in the center of the temple courtyard. At the top of these towers were massive bowls of oil. When they were lit, the flames roared so high that ancient writers claimed there was not a single courtyard in Jerusalem that did not reflect their light. But these fires were not just decorative, they were a memory. The Feast of Tabernacles was the time when Israel remembered their journey through the wilderness. Those giant blazing lamps in the courtyard were designed to remind the people of the pillar of fire that had guided their ancestors through the dark. For 7 days, the people danced under the light of these massive lamps, remembering the ancient glory of God and waiting for His presence to return to the world. It is exactly here, in the shadow of these towering fires, that Jesus stands up and speaks. He looks at the crowds, He points to the flames, and He says, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." We often read this as a gentle, poetic metaphor. We imagine Jesus is just saying He is a good teacher who will show us the right moral path. But to a first-century Jewish audience, standing in the glow of the temple courtyard, this was a massive, dangerous claim. Jesus was not just saying He was a helpful light. He was claiming to be the pillar of fire. He was claiming to be the uncreated presence of God. To understand how heavy this claim is, look at the very first verses of the Gospel of John. John opens his book with the exact same 3 words that open the book of Genesis: in the beginning. John writes that in the beginning, the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then, in verse 4, he introduces the central theme of his entire gospel. In Him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Pause for a second and see what has emerged. The biblical pattern has reached a stunning new phase. The uncreated light that filled the cosmos on day 1, the light that condensed into a burning pillar over the desert, the light that was cultivated in the golden tree of the tabernacle, that exact same light has now condensed even further. It has taken on human flesh. The light is walking around in first-century Israel, and notice what it does. Wherever Jesus goes, He does exactly what the light did in Genesis chapter 1. When God spoke light into existence, it pushed back the chaos and established boundaries for life to flourish. When Jesus heals a man with leprosy, He restores order to a decaying body. When He stands in a boat and calms the storm, He brings boundaries to the chaotic deep. When He casts out a dark spirit, He is separating the light from the darkness. He is doing the work of day 1, but He is doing it on a human scale. The chaos cannot master Him. But there is a tension here. If Jesus is carrying the uncreated light of the universe inside Himself, why does He look so ordinary? To the crowds, He just looked like a carpenter from a poor, obscure village. He had dirt on His sandals. He got tired. He grew thirsty. The physical veil of His humanity was incredibly thick. People could hear His words and see His miracles, but they could not see the blazing, visible glory of the cosmic light. He looked entirely ordinary. It is one thing to stand in the temple courtyard and claim to be the light of the world. It is another thing entirely to let that human veil drop and prove it. For nearly 3 years, the disciples walked beside Jesus. They ate with Him. They watched Him sleep in the back of a boat. They saw His sandals gather dust from the Judean roads. To them, He was a brilliant teacher. He was a prophet. He was the promised Messiah. But He still looked entirely human. The uncreated light of the cosmos was hidden beneath the heavy, ordinary veil of human flesh. It is one thing to hear a man claim to be the light of the world. It is another thing to see it. In Matthew chapter 17, the veil drops. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John and leads them up a high mountain by themselves. In Scripture, mountains are never just geography. They are places of revelation. They are the high ground where heaven and earth intersect. The disciples are likely exhausted from the climb. But what happens next completely shatters their understanding of reality. Matthew writes, "There He was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and His clothes became as white as the light." Notice the detail here. Matthew uses the sun as a comparison, but he is describing something much greater. Jesus is not standing in a spotlight. The light is not shining upon Him. It is shining out of him. To understand how shocking this is, you have to look back at the Old Testament pattern. When Moses went up Mount Sinai and spoke with God, his face glowed. But Moses was only reflecting the light. Like a mirror catching the sun, Moses absorbed a fraction of God's glory, and when he walked away, that light eventually faded. Jesus is not reflecting anything. He is generating it. The uncreated light of day one, the blazing fire of the wilderness pillar, the radiant energy that pushed back the cosmic chaos. It is all bursting through his skin. The human body of this carpenter is suddenly revealed as the true tabernacle, housing the very presence of God, and the pattern deepens. A bright cloud suddenly covers them, and a voice speaks from the inside of the cloud, saying, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." A bright cloud. This is the exact imagery of the Exodus. It is the pillar of cloud and fire that led the Israelites through the desert. The ancient presence of God has descended onto the mountain. When the disciples see the light and hear the voice, they do not stand in quiet awe. They do not sing. They collapse. Matthew says they fell face down to the ground, terrified. This is the reality of the biblical pattern. When human beings encounter the raw, uncreated light of God, it is beautiful, but it is terrifying. It is a weight of glory that frail human frames cannot bear. The chaos and brokenness inside them cannot stand upright in the presence of pure, life-giving order. They are pressed to the dirt. But then, the most crucial moment of the scene happens. Jesus walks over and touches them. He says, "Get up. Do not be afraid." When they open their eyes, the cloud is gone. The blazing, blinding light is gone. Jesus looks entirely ordinary again. The veil is back in place. He had shown them the truth. He had proven his claim. The cosmic light was truly inside him. But he could not stay glowing on the mountain. He had to walk back down into the dark valley. Because the ultimate victory of the light was not going to happen through a display of overwhelming power. The light had to confront the deepest, most suffocating chaos in the human experience. It had to face death itself. And to do that, the uncreated light of the cosmos was going to do something entirely unthinkable. At the very climax of the biblical story, the light of the world was going to allow itself to be completely eclipsed. Jesus walks down from the mountain of transfiguration. The blazing, uncreated light is hidden once more beneath the heavy veil of his humanity. He looks like an ordinary carpenter again. He sets his face toward Jerusalem. He is walking toward the cross. And it is here, at the crucifixion, that the biblical pattern of light reaches its most terrifying reversal. We often read the story of the crucifixion focusing entirely on the physical suffering of Jesus. The Roman guards, the thorns, the nails, but the gospel writers want us to see something happening on a much larger scale, a cosmic scale. Matthew chapter 27, verse 45, records a detail that changes how we understand the entire event. Matthew writes, "From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land." Think about the timing. Noon is the brightest part of the day. The sun is directly overhead. But for 3 hours, the light is completely extinguished. Many readers try to explain this away as a simple solar eclipse or a severe dust storm. But the biblical writers are doing something much deeper than reporting the weather. They are pointing us back to the very beginning of the story. Remember Genesis chapter 1. Before the light, the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the surface of the deep. That darkness was not just nighttime. It was chaos. It was the wild, uninhabitable abyss. God's first act of creation was to speak into that chaos and say, "Let there be light." The light pushed back the dark. It established boundaries. It created a safe space where life could flourish. For thousands of years, the presence of God had been holding back the dark. But on Good Friday, the pattern runs in reverse. The uncreated light of the cosmos, the Word who was in the beginning, the pillar of fire who guided Israel, the one who stood in the temple and claimed to be the light of the world, is hanging on a Roman execution stake, and he allows the darkness to return. He allows the primordial chaos of human rebellion, sin, and death to wash over him. The darkness falling over Jerusalem is not just a dramatic backdrop. It is creation unraveling. It is the uncreating of the world. The boundaries are collapsing, and the chaotic void is flooding back in. For 3 hours, the light of the world is completely eclipsed. When Jesus takes his final breath, The Gospel of Matthew tells us the earth violently shakes and the rocks split. Creation is trembling. The author of life has entered the empire of death. If the story ended here, it would be the ultimate tragedy. It would mean that the chaos was stronger. It would mean that the darkness had finally won. But the Gospel of John already gave us the promise in his opening chapter. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. 3 days later, the sun rises on Sunday morning, but an even greater light breaks out of a stone tomb. Jesus walks out of the grave, leaving death behind him. The darkness could not hold him. The chaos could not master him. The uncreated light of God has conquered the grave from the inside out. The resurrection proves that the light is victorious. But notice what happens next. When Jesus rises from the dead, he does not go back to the temple and relight the golden menorah. He does not turn back into a towering pillar of fire in the sky. He does something far more intimate and far more unexpected. He takes the uncreated light that conquered the grave and he places it inside ordinary human beings. Jesus rises from the dead, but he does not stay on earth as a glowing, visible pillar of fire. Instead, he gathers a small group of ordinary people on a hillside. He looks at his disciples, fishermen, tax collectors, farmers, and says something that should sound completely scandalous. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden." Notice the exact phrasing. It is an echo. Later in his ministry, Jesus will stand in the temple courtyard and say, "I am the light of the world." But here, at the very beginning, he gives that exact same title to his followers. He does not say, "You have a little bit of light." He does not say, "You are reflecting my light." He says, "You are the light." This is a massive transfer of cosmic responsibility. Think back through the entire pattern. The uncreated light of day one pushed back the cosmic chaos. The pillar of fire guided a wandering nation through the wilderness. The golden menorah stood as a burning tree of life in the tabernacle. Jesus himself was the living tabernacle, housing the blazing glory of God. Now, Jesus is saying that this exact same presence, this exact same world-ordering, life-giving power is being placed inside human beings. This changes what we think it means to be a Christian. Most people read the phrase, "Let your light shine," as a simple moral checklist. They think it just means being a nice person, or not doing bad things, or trying to be a good example in the community. But that is too small. That is not the biblical pattern. In Scripture, light does not just behave well, light conquers chaos. When Jesus calls his followers the light of the world, he is commissioning them to do the exact same work he did, to do the exact same work the light did on day one. Wherever the followers of Jesus go, they are supposed to bring order to chaotic places. They are supposed to bring life where there is an empire of death. They are supposed to push back the dark. When believers care for the poor, they are pushing back the chaos of poverty. When they forgive an enemy, they are pushing back the chaos of violence. When they tell the truth in a corrupt system, they are separating the light from the darkness. Jesus goes on to say in verse 15, "Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house." The language of a lamp and a stand is temple language. He is telling them that they are the new menorah. They are the new golden lampstand. The physical temple in Jerusalem is going to be destroyed in a few decades. The literal lamps will go out forever. But it will not matter, because the light has already been relocated. The holy place is no longer a tent in the desert or a stone building in Jerusalem. It is the human heart. It is the community of God's people. They are carrying the uncreated light of God out into the Roman Empire, out into the centuries, and out into the dark. But as beautiful as this is, human beings holding lamps is not the end of the story. The church carrying the light is only the second to last chapter of the pattern, because human hands are still frail, lamps still flicker, the world is still painfully dark. The biblical story cannot end with millions of tiny, separate lights scattered across a chaotic planet. The pattern has to resolve. The darkness has to be defeated permanently. And so, the Bible ends with a vision of a final city coming down from heaven, a city of profound beauty, order, and life. But if you look closely at the architectural blueprints of this final city, there is a massive, blinding omission. The book of Revelation is the final chapter of the biblical story. the Apostle John is given a vision of the end of all things. Or more accurately, he is given a vision of the beginning of the new creation. He sees a city coming down out of heaven, the New Jerusalem. It is a place of profound order, beauty, and life. But as John describes the architecture of this final city, he points out two massive omissions. In Revelation chapter 21, verse 22, he writes, "I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple." And then, in the very next verse, he says something even more shocking. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. Look at what has just happened. The entire biblical pattern has come full circle, but it has not just repeated, it has resolved. To understand how beautiful this is, you have to remember where we started. In Genesis chapter 1, the uncreated light of God's presence illuminated the cosmos for 3 days before the sun and the moon were even created. The sun and the moon were just functionaries. They were temporary lamps. They were given a job on day 4 to govern the day and the night. Now, at the very end of the Bible, their shift is over. They are retired. They are no longer needed because the true light has permanently returned to the center of creation. Notice what else is missing in John's vision. In Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, John says, "And there was no longer any sea." In the biblical imagination, the sea was not just a body of salt water. It was the ultimate symbol of the dark, chaotic abyss. It was the primordial deep from Genesis chapter 1. It was the place where the monsters lived. It was the chaos that threatened human life. And in Revelation chapter 22, verse 5, John adds, "There will be no more night. The chaos is gone. The darkness has been permanently defeated." The pattern that began in the opening sentences of the Bible has finally reached its ultimate conclusion. Think about the long journey of this light. It started as a cosmic force, hovering over the waters of creation, speaking boundaries into the dark. It stepped down to become a pillar of fire, pacing itself to the walking speed of wandering refugees in a desert. It allowed itself to be brought indoors, burning as a golden tree of life, tended by fragile human hands in a dark tent. It became the great prophetic hope of an exiled people sitting in the ruins of their nation. It took on human flesh, walking the dusty roads of Israel, bringing order to sickness, storms, and shattered minds. It allowed itself to be completely eclipsed on a Roman cross, stepping into the ultimate chaos so that it could conquer the grave from the inside out. It was placed inside the hearts of ordinary men and women, scattering millions of tiny flames across a dark and violent history. And now, at the end of the age, the light fills everything. There is no more need for a temple, because the whole world has become the holy place. There is no more need for the sun, because the Creator is dwelling directly with His creation. If this journey through Scripture has helped you see the Bible with fresh eyes, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next study. When you trace this pattern from Genesis to Revelation, one truth becomes incredibly clear. The light was never just physical illumination. It was the relentless, life-giving presence of a God who refused to leave His creation in the dark.